So if you're watching this video, it's because you are fully committed. You decided, you know what? I don't care about spring pre-emergent. I'm going to go ahead and do a spring spot seeding. Well, this video is going to show you exactly how to do that, despite the fact that I think it's a waste of time in the spring and you should probably just stick with the pre-emergent. But anyway, who am I to tell you what to do? Am I right? I'm going to take a couple minutes, tell you how it's done. But if I'm being honest, I highly recommend you wait till August or September. But again, I'm going to leave that up to you. Let's get into it. So in this video, we're going to show you how to gradually eradicate unwanted greens and weeds and other crops and all that type of stuff from your lawn over a long period of time so that you can come in with the ideal seed that we talked about in the last video, step by step, and get a nice patch of green that is, if not exactly the same, almost identical to your beautiful, thick, blue-green stand of turf. The first thing we're going to do from a bird's eye view is we're going to map out our trouble spots. Now, the lawn I'm using here is actually one of my clients. He wanted to do a little extra service here by eradicating these areas of bent grass he had. Now, even though we're using bent grass in this video, these same principles can be applied to any unwanted weed because we will be using a non-selective chemical that kills anything green that we do not want in our lawn. Which brings me to the first step, and that is spraying everything with glyphosate. So glyphosate, as you guys know, is a non-selective herbicide that kills anything green. It works systemically, which means once you spray it, it's going to translocate through the plant and kill it oh so slowly all the way around from top to bottom, which leads to a very, very effective kill. Now, because of that, this herbicide is going to be more effective in warmer temperatures. Now, as far as when you want to do this, that is your prerogative. That is up to you. But in my experience, I'm going to tell you, I highly recommend you wait until nighttime temperatures are 50 degrees or higher. 55 if you want to be a little more safe, but 50 degrees at the very least at night. That way you're going to ensure that this herbicide is going to work a little bit faster, which is why, again, I recommend waiting until late summer, early fall to do this. But again, who am I to tell you what to do? You guys do whatever you want, right? That's the fun part of lawn care. You could do almost anything, and it's going to look good no matter what you do. Just make sure you stay within the maximums of whatever you're using. Anyway, I digress. So you're going to do one application of glyphosate on the first day to the areas that you have classified as trouble areas. In this case, that's going to be the bent grass. We're going to spray this down with glyphosate, and our next step is going to be in about 10 to 12 days, which is another application of glyphosate. You see, the thing is, when you're dealing with areas that are thick, that are more mature, especially with bent grass, and this really applies to any area you're killing that is thick and full of greenery, it's going to take more than one application, and that's going to be another application of glyphosate. Now, as far as the rates go, I'm using the recommended rates on the glyphosate product I'm using, which I can't speak on because it's different for every glyphosate product. But this one I'm using here at the recommended rate, which I will leave right here, and I'm coming back for yet another application at that single rate to kill it off even further. And the third step is going to come about another 10 to 12 days after that, and that is going to be yet another application of glyphosate. As you can see, this is not a one-done process. The kill-off process does take a little bit of time. As a matter of fact, it may even take a fourth application in some cases, but these first couple of steps are really going to be repeated applications of glyphosate, 2 to 3 at the very least, to kill off the undesired crop completely so that we can make way for our new seed. Now onto the actual seeding process itself. Now, this is going to be up to you to decide. You're just going to have to monitor it and look at it. I can tell you from experience, if you look at it and you're like, okay, everything I don't want is dead and gone, then you can start the process of seeding. But if there is a little bit of greenery left over, which can happen in some cases, especially if you're watering a lot, then it might be a good idea to do one more application and wait another 12 to 14 days to begin the overseeding process. Once you've ensured that everything is dead and gone that you do not want in there, now it is time to go ahead and begin the overseeding process. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to remove all of that dead and unwanted debris in there. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do this. I decided to actually take my string trimmer to it and just break it up into little bits so I can blow it back into the lawn like it was nothing. And in case you're wondering, no, the dead grass blades will not translocate glyphosate and kill other parts of your lawn. But we dispersed them up, blew them back into the lawn, let the mowing guy break them down. didn't see any issues. Nothing to worry about there, assuming you waited the full 2 weeks. Now for this next step, I like to go ahead and ensure that the seed is going to get into the dirt. Seed to soil contact is very important. So what I like to do, especially when I'm dealing with small areas like this, is I like to go ahead and use what is called a garden weasel. Now the one I'm using here is, funny enough, it's called Corona. And I gotta say, I really like this tool and the way it works for small spot seeding areas. It's a little non-motorized tool, kind of like an aerator. And what you do is you kind of rough up the dirt with it. It has tines in it, and what it'll do is it'll rough up that dirt to create a suitable bed for new seed. Now, mind you, you want the dirt to be wet while you're doing this too, if possible. It'll make things so much easier. But it's gonna rough up the dirt, and it's gonna allow a perfect bed for that seed to drop into and grow into. Again, just improving seed to soil contact, very important. Then once you're done, you're gonna come in with your seed of choice. Now the seed I used here, and this is a little bit of a promotion for a friend of mine, Jeff Stahman over at Turfmend. He graciously sent me some seed for this area. And as you've probably seen in the last video by now, I'm very impressed with how it came in. It matches the lawn exactly. I will leave a couple of my favorite recommended blends right here in the shop icon in the lower left-hand corner. I'll do that in all my videos nowadays. But super good, high-quality seed that does match a lot of cool season situations, whether you're dealing with bluegrass, ryegrass, a mix of both, and maybe even blue and ryegrass with a mix of fescue. And he does have different blends for sun, shade, and both sun and shade. I will leave all that right here for you to check out. Super great stuff. That's the seed we used. As far as how I applied it, there's a couple different ways you can apply it when you're talking about small spots. You can either do it by hand, you can use a little Scott's Whiz spreader, a hand crank spreader, or if you want to get super nerdy with it, you can actually pick up a golf divot filler. You know, the same ones they put on the golf carts for the golf courses. I actually happen to have one, and it works very well at spreading the seed evenly into the area. Now, as far as how heavy I'm going with the seed, I'm going as heavy as I can. I do recommend you use your judgment here, a little bit of common sense. You don't want to pile it on top like that. You simply want it to be dispersed evenly across the bare spot like this, maybe about that thick, because when you're using bare spot mixes like this, especially the Turfmend one, it does have a lot of filler in there that's just going to help hold the seed in place and keep it from washing away, despite all the work that we did to help avoid that even further. The seed comes with like a fail-safe, if you will, to keep that from happening. Now, one last thing I like to do as an added measure is I actually like to go ahead and top dress these areas with a little bit of peat moss. Now, in this particular setting, I really didn't have to do this because the seed came with a coating to keep it from washing away. But if you're just going out with straight grass seed, I recommend coating it with 1/4 to 1/2 inch of peat moss just to hold it in place, help it retain moisture, and again, try and combat against erosion as much as possible. As far as fertility goes, that's another thing that's going to be very important in getting this seed moving along. I honestly just treat it like it's part of the lawn. Now, the only situation where I wouldn't do that is if I was blanket spraying a herbicide that I knew would damage my seed in its early stages. But for the most part, as far as fertility goes, don't overthink it. Depending on when you're doing it throughout the year, unless it's crabgrass pre-emergent, of course, which is why, again, I recommend you do this later in the year so you don't interfere with your crabgrass pre-emergent. Just treat the lawn like you normally would. Pretend these spots are already filled in. Fertilizers are okay in those areas. Anything that ends in the word "ides," insecticides, pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, all that type of stuff, keep that off of that area until about your second or third mow or something along the lines of that. Once it looks sufficiently thick and mature. That's what I would recommend in terms of feeding. Again, my favorite fertilizers for any time of year, no matter what program you're on, that'll all be here in the shop icon for you. You do all that, you water it 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, 10 to 15 minutes each time, keeping that seed moist for 30 to 45 days or so. My friends, you're going to be pleased with the results. As a matter of fact, here is what it looks like. You follow these steps to a T, you do them correctly, your seeded areas are going to blend perfectly with your existing turf. Now, one thing that's very important to make sure, if you haven't checked this already, is the seed you get doesn't have any of the noxious stuff in there that we do not want. If you don't know what I'm talking about, and this is the first video you're seeing today, I recommend you check out the last video we just put out right here that explains what I'm talking about with that regard.